Hey, Real Money community, it's Lisa, and I'm back with a whole new episode and a whole new season of Real Money in 2025. For my first episode this year, I'm so excited to introduce to you Nona. Nona is someone who I profoundly respect. And in this episode, she's going to share her story of how she immigrated to the United States at the age of 16 from a war-torn third world country and how she's created success in her life. But she didn't do it the way that you think she would have. And that's why she's an amazing guest for Real Money. Tune into this show where we're going to talk about all things real, about being a mom, an entrepreneur, a woman who's gone through and journeyed divorce, and hear from someone who's creating success her way. Let's dig in to this episode of Real Money with Nona. Okay, perfect way to start out the new year in a conversation about money mindset. So you're an NLP practitioner. Money mindset is a big topic in what you teach, in the business owners that you work with. You're from the Tony Robbins world, so I want to talk about that, how you got started in the Tony Robbins world. You're a Forbes Council member. You're someone that I respect. And we're doing similar work, but in very different ways. You're also someone who will be introduced to my community. So people that come to work with me in my mastermind community, you'll be an expert talking about your perspective on money mindset. So let's just dig in there. Now, you immigrated to the United States when you were 16 years old. You knew about that much, very little English. Knowing what you know from an NLP standpoint, what was your money mindset growing up?
Ooh. Okay, we're just diving right
Going
in.
in there.
We're going in there. Okay, so here's the thing. I grew up in Iran until I was 16 years old, and there are so many different dynamics, but I think, and I'll share some bits of it. I think that you don't have to, anybody listening in, you don't have to have my experience, but I think it's so relatable. The bottom line of it is so relatable. Growing up in Iran, it's a third world country, right? And we did pretty okay. Both my parents worked, probably middle class, I would say, maybe middle, a little bit into the higher class. But you also have to understand that I grew up in when there was war
Yeah, right after the revolution.
after the revolution. So I'm 7 years old. There's bombs being thrown around. I'm going to school. Sometimes we're going under the desks to be safe. Sometimes we're going into the basements to be safe. And more importantly, since we're talking about money mindset, we had food and gasoline and a lot of different things were rationed.
Yeah.
So there's so much scarcity around food being available, gas being available, you having your heater on, or whatever the case may have been. Now, I believe, and we may dive into this too, but I believe that some of the scarcity or money mindsets that we pick up, they're generational
Oh,
also.
yeah, for sure.
So go back to my grandparents and the generation prior to that. There's the Great Depression, and nobody was like really extremely wealthy. So, and nobody really had their own businesses either because nobody was an entrepreneur. Everybody was just like, you get educated, you go to school, and then you become a doctor, you become an attorney, you get a job, and safety was really valued highly. So then
Was that different from Iranian men and Iranian women, or was that the same? Were women treated differently?
women, generally speaking, as a culture and I think as a country, are definitely repressed. I mean, you have to cover yourself. There's so many different aspects to this, but for me personally speaking, I didn't feel that way. In my family culture, immediately and extended, we women were actually, there were a lot of women in my family. My mom has six sisters.
Wow.
So, and they're all actually very well educated, well to do for themselves now. But in my immediate family and extended family, women were pushed to become educated, to take risks, and to do the things. But if you look at the consciousness of the country, of the culture in general, yes, you're really raised to raise children and become a housewife and take care of a man and things like that. But it wasn't really, I can't say that personally that was the case for me.
Okay. Got it. And so what happened when you were 15, 16 years old that inspired the move to the United States?
Okay. Well, I was 16, so it was really mainly my parents' decision to move in that direction. Everybody wants to move to the United States for the amount of opportunity, the level of freedom, and all the things, mainly the opportunity. So when we came here, going back to the money mindset, my parents, they took all of their savings, okay?
Mm,
And I wish they had access to everything that you teach, but they took all of their savings and they brought it to the United States. And because of the dollar exchange at the time, or even now, it was basically a month's, couple months maybe worth of being able to live in the
wow.
United States. So, I mean, imagine sold your house, you sold your cars, all of my parents sold my mom sold all of her jewelry, and then now we're here and we got a couple months to be able to survive. And then in the midst of it, I get thrown into high school where I don't speak the language and there's a culture shock and they had me skip a year. So now I'm a 16-year-old senior, which in itself
Mm,
was kind of a difficult
different.
situation. Yeah. So all of these different components, and I remember at the time being a 16-year-old girl growing and seeing what was available in the United States and like wanting things that took money. I want this piece of clothing, I want those shoes, and I want to
Mhm.
be more like Americans, right? I was trying to really fit in. And I think that's really where it all began because I had to figure out how to get good at making money. So, one of the first things that I did when I moved to the United States was what am I good at? I could barely speak English. I don't think I spoke for like 2 months and then I started
Mhm.
talking a bit. But what am I good at? I was really good at math. And
Okay.
so I started to tutor math because it was easy to teach because it was numbers. You didn't
Yep.
have to know a whole lot. The language was similar, some of the technical language. So I started to teach math to the kids in the neighborhood. And Lisa, that is when my first underground business of tutoring
I love it.
began. And I took it a step farther because I was like, I don't know how much I was getting paid at the time per hour, but I was like, I only have this many number of hours and I want to make more money. So then I started recruiting. So I really understood leverage and time and scaling, for a 16-year-old, 17.
Yeah.
So I started leverage the kids that were in my high school. I was like, you're good at math. You should teach the kid who I just got referred to, and you can just give me X dollar
A cut.
amount.
I love it.
So it was my entrepreneurship, my love for abundance. It really began in a space where there was a lot of poverty and a lot of lack and a lot of
Mhm.
scarcity. And for a beginning portion of my journey, the scarcity mindset drove me into building
Action.
businesses that made money, which wasn't ideal either, because you don't want to drive yourself to health by being afraid of being sick. You don't want to
Yeah.
drive yourself to generate more money by being afraid of being poor. It's not really a healthy way to live.
It's not. And that's exactly what I teach in my world. And that's what we call away from motivation in NLP.
Hmm.
Your motivation is to get away from that lifestyle. I was curious about that because we haven't had this conversation. I was like, I wonder if that's where it started. And that was your motivation, was to basically get out of that
Hmm.
poverty, which was your motivation to start selling
Businesses.
tutoring and businesses. Okay.
Mhm.
Love that. So then you decide to go to UC Berkeley. Was that your decision or your family's decision? How did you
It
get to
was
that?
Yeah, I just applied for multiple schools, I think mainly in California, and I got into a couple. And at the time, I think maybe still Berkeley it's public school, so I didn't have to pay. Well, there you have your tuition, which I took financial loans, but it was a public school. It's a really good school. It's number one public school in nation or maybe in California. So I just picked it, and then I
Mhm.
took off and went to Berkeley, and then I went to chiropractic
Yeah.
school.
What made you decide to do that?
The transition from Berkeley to chiropractic school, I think it was more of I had some doctors in the family, and culturally, the Persian culture, and I think a lot of minorities, a lot of immigrants might relate to this, is like go be a doctor, be an attorney, because it seems like the safe thing to do.
Yep. Very common.
So I did that. I was like, I don't want to go to medical school. I don't want to go to dental school. As a matter of fact, I took the DAT. I got accepted to NYU, and I decided against it because I was like, that sounds like a lot of money for something I don't really love to
Mm,
do. So I met a chiropractor, landed in chiropractic school, and now looking back, I can see because Berkeley, I studied neurology, so it really was relevant
mm,
once you understand chiropractic. It's the neurology is very much involved, and you always kind of can see the path that you were led. You have to get there to look back and see the
yep,
points
the
of
breadcrumbs.
reference, right? The breadcrumbs. Thank you. So when I look back, I'm like, neurology made sense because now I use that background to teach money mindset or to teach entrepreneurs how to scale with ease. Chiropractic helped because I understood that the power, it's a very common saying in chiropractic, which is the power that made the body heals the body. So
Mm.
understanding that I have the power in me to generate, to create, to build the kind of life, the kind of business that I would like to, the kind of experiences I'd like to experience in the world too.
You do have that power. We all have that
Mm-hmm.
power.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody realizes that they have that power. And women today are just now, I think, realizing in a mass way that we
Mm-hmm.
have that power.
Mm-hmm.
So you become a chiropractor because that was what was acceptable. And I was an advisor in higher education. So my first career was advising the best and brightest students at UNLV. And that was the experience I had with so many families, first generation families, and they had three choices before: doctor, lawyer, CPA, engineer.
Okay. Yeah.
Safe, reliable, there's a pathway,
Yes.
and you're going to make money.
You're gonna make
Which
money.
isn't always true,
Nope.
which isn't always true, but that was the driving force for the families. When you became a chiropractor, at what point did you realize it wasn't for you?
Well, when I picked it, I knew it was for me. At the
Okay.
time, it was for me because, I had a limited view of what I was doing. I didn't have the self-awareness. I'm barely in my early 20s. I graduated Berkeley early. So by the time I graduated chiropractic school, I think I was maybe like 22, 21. So I was in this, it was for me. And I still looking back, I think it was for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but fast forward though, I go to chiropractic school and I go, I'm going to build, coming from the push of the scarcity, I'm going to build the most successful practice that I can build, right? So I was very driven, very like A plus, very motivated to build something that was successful.
At that
And
time, what did success mean to you?
great question. By the standards of society. So on paper, I wanted $1 million practice. That was like a thing in chiropractics,
Right.
right? You want to be $1 million practice. And the first 3 years, and immediately after school, I went to create that business. And first 3 years, I was near a million. I didn't hit the million, and I had the quote unquote success, checked off all the things that would make a person success, like get married,
Oh,
have
yeah.
a child, like
Have a
everything in the
practice.
matrix, make money, have a successful business. I had at a time, I remember I had like 13 employees at one point early
Wow.
on. And I was making really great money for a solo practitioner. And however, I was completely burnt out,
Yep.
and my marriage wasn't working. And I remember, Elisa, one time my son, who's now 9, so we're talking 9 years ago, he was a newborn. And I
Mhm.
remember I had a very ordinary day where I was in maternity. My people were running the practice, and I put my son to take a nap, one of the 500 naps that he was taking at the time. And I took a call with my staff and ran through some numbers. Everything was fine. And then I walked myself into the walk in closet and I shut the door, shut the lights, and I sat against the wall of the walk in closet and I started sobbing.
Mm.
Because at that point, I had checked off all the things that they would tell you should make you happy or that's what you're supposed to do. And here I am, Um, I've done it all. I've worked really hard, and
And
yet,
what, you're barely 30?
oh no, I was probably in my, yeah, barely 30, maybe like
Yep.
mid 20s, yeah, and completely just exhausted and burnt
Yep.
out, and then um, in that space of despair, and I remember just sobbing, like my sleeves were wet, and I was trying to hold
Mm,
my mouth so that my son wouldn't wake up, because that's a whole nother level of stress.
yeah.
And of course I have postpartum hormones that are coming
All
through,
of it.
like so many different things. And then in that moment, I realized that I had to do things differently. When it came down to creating the life that I wanted, it felt like, I always describe it like I was building this life, but it was really bricks around myself. It was lonely in my marriage. I was unhappy as a mom, and as a new mom, I was completely burnt out by my business because I built this thing, but I was also a slave to it. I was completely trapped. I didn't have the freedom that I thought I would have.
Yeah, this is a
And
great turning point. This is my exact experience in my
mm,
own way.
really.
This is exactly what I went through in my 20s. I
Mm,
got the job, I got the career, building, bought a house, got married, had a newborn, did all the things, and at 28 years old, crash and burn.
yeah.
I describe it as a house of cards. It just took
Mm,
one thing to pop one card out and everything just changed. It
yeah.
took me years to actually admit that to myself. I was in denial about it for too long.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, you realized it needs to change.
Yeah.
What
And
changed? Because someone's listening to this right now and they're in that experience. They're in their closet literally saying, I can't do this anymore.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to preface both of our experiences, or anyone listening to this having that experience, by saying, what a blessing.
Mm,
What a blessing that was. Like in
yes.
the moment, I just got chills even saying it, but in the moment, it's one. I've had many dark moments in my life, but that was a really dark moment, literally,
Yeah.
physically and metaphorically in all the ways. But that closet became my womb, or it became a womb for me to kind of rebirth another version of myself. Because, like you said, you have to get to a point where you realize it's not, other stuff is not working. The stuff I've been doing is not working. I gotta do something different.
But on the outside looking in, you had it all.
I had it all.
This
Yeah. I
is
mean,
the biggest misconception of success
hmm,
that we're facing and interrupting real time as women.
yeah.
Having it all
That's,
really isn't having it all for so many of us. Could
hmm.
you say it was a facade in some ways, or you just didn't know what you didn't know?
I would say it was both.
Mm,
I would say it was both. And I mean, look at the consciousness of the world. Women, if we're going that route, women are the most giving part of the human species, right? So I was giving to my ex-husband now, husband at the time. I was giving to my parents. I was giving to
mm,
my clients. I was giving to my employees. And um, and then you think self care or filling up your cup is like getting your nails done, or what? No,
no,
it wasn't. That wasn't gonna do it. No, no amount of mani pedi was going to get me out of that
no.
closet.
So what did get you out?
I had a moment while I was in the closet where I saw the vision that I had for my life before I became a mom, before I became a wife, before I became a chiropractor, before I became a woman, probably from when I was a little girl, where we all think we're gonna marry Prince Charming, we're gonna be in love, we're gonna have a cute little family, we're gonna maybe travel. For me, travel and adventure was a big thing. Um, I was gonna have a business that was gonna give me freedom, not to trap
Hmm.
me in itself. And so I had this vision, and parts of this vision were also things that were very specific to myself. Like, I wanted a house in the mountains.
Hmm.
Always wanted that when I was a kid. I wanted to live between Europe and California. Or when I was a kid, I used to say I want to live like two different parts of the world. There were very specific things that I don't know, you're born with, you pick up somewhere, you think it's cool, but it belonged to me.
Mm-hmm.
The vision belonged to me. So I took that vision, and I remember seeing the vision or kind of that coming up, and me in that mini little moment of the vision, had this sense of freedom. The vision wasn't there. That life was so far from where I was sitting in the closet, but just the thought of that vision gave me a sense of freedom. And so in that moment, I decided that instead of asking myself, how are you worthy of this vision? Or who are you to think you're going to have this? Or how are you going to get there? Or what do you think is going to happen? All these questions that are basically going to keep me in the closet. I was going to, instead of asking those questions, I was going to commit to my vision. I was going to continue to say yes to my vision. I was going to build certainty around the fact that the vision is mine. And that was the sliver of hope that I had. And when I walked out of the closet, I decided that that was going to be my vision. So I just jotted it down, and I still have that piece of paper. I have a picture of it, actually, not the piece of paper, although I can find it, I'm sure. But jotted down how I wanted to impact the world, what I wanted my life, my future family to look like. And I kid you not, it's going to sound like the movie The Secret, but now looking back at what I wrote down, we're talking a decade later, and I live that life.
I know you do. I know you do. That's when you were describing it. I was like, okay, she's got the house in the mountains in Europe.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. And that's a journey. That's a journey. So this is the first of many conversations that you and I will have. I just know that. So let's walk through the journey then. So you have the vision. That's the first step. And I've heard you talk about this. I've heard you teach this before. You have to have the vision. And that's the journey of manifestation is first you have to see it. And then you have to feel it, think it, see it, feel it to make it happen. And you re-engineered your whole life. What were those steps that you took out of the closet?
Okay. Yes. I want to preface this conversation by saying that this did not have happen overnight.
No, right. That's right.
Right. I'm talking a decade. I'm talking so many versions of me have had to die. I've had to actively kill parts of myself that were not serving me. I've had to actively work on myself to get to this point. So I don't want my story to be about what I have right now.
Yep.
Because I don't want people to look and go, well, that's really grand and that's really great for her, but it's not for me, or I can't get there.
Totally.
You can get there as long as you have a vision, as long as you commit to your vision. It may not be overnight.
It probably won't. It probably won't be overnight.
It won't, but it will be one juicy, amazing journey that you're going to take, right?
Yeah.
You'll look back and you'll love it. Well, let's talk about the steps, because I think that's where we can get practical. The very first step, like Lisa, you were saying, I think any level of success you want to accomplish, you have to have a vision. So I had this vision. I kept saying yes to it. And part of the reason from a neurological perspective that you have a vision is because neurologically you're wired to experience what you have experienced in the past. So if I grew up in poverty, or if I grew up in the war, if I grew up all the things that I brought that raised me practically, then I am likely to experience that even at $1 million business.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Then, so if I'm giving my brain a vision, and if I'm giving my neurology that vision, and like you said beautifully, if I feel it, and if I embody it, and I do all of those things, then now my nervous system actually feels safe in that vision. So the idea is you have the vision. Then in step 2, you figure out what's the identity of the version of you that can live that vision. Because who I was in the closet could not have access to the vision that I had. So I had to identify my future version.
Yep.
What's the future version of me? Maybe she's more confident. Maybe she's more, she has the ability to invest in herself, or she moves really quickly. She makes decisions. She takes on courses that somebody like Lisa, she takes on expertship, mentorship from people like Lisa or others in the industry and the way I want to grow. So I wasn't doing all of those things. So there had to be an identity shift. But first you have to identify the traits of who you want to become.
Right.
the version of you that's living the vision.
That's
So
what we
that's
call modeling in NLP. You
beautiful.
have to
Yes.
model what it is that you see
Mhm.
actively. Even though you're not there yet, the modeling will get you there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's step two.
Hmm.
And then
So
what?
step
Now,
one is just,
alongside of that, you're still married to someone that you're no longer married to. You're still in a business that isn't serving you. Like there's still lifing, and you still have a newborn.
yes.
So this is what we're facing, right? We're like, there's
Yes.
this person of me out there, but I'm still here in this life.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about. You have to be willing to shed those parts of you, and that is not easy.
Yes. And let me tell you, now I'm glad you pointed that out. I ended up in that journey. So this is important because I don't want people to think this is easy. She makes it sound
Yeah.
so easy. No, I had another child. I have two
Yeah,
children
you did.
in the same marriage that wasn't working. So no, but I kept saying yes to the vision. Marriage wasn't working. I had really hard days. I had really hard phases. I was pregnant. I had another postpartum depression that I went really. But you know what? I kept saying yes to the vision.
Mm,
Anything that came up, I'm going to say yes to the vision. I sold my business. I'm going to say yes to the vision. I lost money. I'm going to say yes to the vision. I just kept
mm.
going.
So
So
say yes. Say yes.
yes,
Say
say
yes.
yes to the vision.
Who supported you during that time of your life?
Um, it's a tough question. I think people would have supported me in that period if they knew what I was going through, but I was in the closet about everything. Everybody, all my friends, even once I got divorced, they were like, "What are you serious? What happened?" Nothing. I was just
Mm,
unhappy for a decade. But I do want to point out my friend Lonnie really supported me in that process in the ways that she could and nobody else really could. And I think that's important to reach out. I've learned that in that process. Sometimes you have a bad day. All it takes is apparently research says a 7-minute conversation with a friend,
yep.
and that should immediately shift your serotonin levels.
Yep. Yep.
So,
We experience these, and I'll help also make the connection to neurolinguistic programming. We experience these significantly emotional events. If we don't talk about them and we isolate, they become disease in our bodies. That's where the talking, it doesn't mean that you need a therapist. It means that you need one person. For me, that's been my best friend Gail during the divorce and all the things. She and I walk every other week now. And I'll call her and spend 5 minutes just like blah, throwing up all over her. I don't need her advice. I don't need her to therapize me. I just need her to listen. And
yes.
when we can find those people and get it out, we can release it and it
Hmm.
doesn't manifest inside of our bodies. That's so important.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
important. Okay, so we're on the journey of mindset. We're on the journey of how Nona's become Nona today, which has been a journey. It's been a lot of work.
Hmm.
You've taken active steps. You held on to the vision. And I think that if anybody listening right now can hold on to anything from this conversation, it's that you say yes to the vision, even if it's scary, even if you don't know how you're going to take the next step. You keep asking the universe to get you closer and closer. And did things just show up for you?
I mean, truthfully, yeah, some things just showed up for me because I kept saying to yes to the vision. And again, the neurology behind this is, and you know this even from neurolinguistic programming, when the whole red car scenario situation, right?
Yep.
Like you are looking for a red car, all you see is a red car. That's your reticular activating system that's searching and filtering the things that are irrelevant. It's filtering the yellow cars and the white cars and the black cars, and so it's focusing you in on the things that are available. So when you have a vision, your reticular activating system, especially if you're going and repetitively seeing the vision, your reticular activating system goes, I am going to go and filter the things that are not relevant, and I'm going to hone in on the things that are going to bring this reality, this vision to reality. So opportunities popped up. Those opportunities were probably would have popped up when I was in the frequency of the closet, but
Yeah,
it would have just I was
that's
just
it.
not capture them.
That's it.
So that
I so
yes,
believe in that.
opportunities popped up, things fell into my lap only because I did the inner work to be able to bring them into reality. But also, I did work very hard to do that. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I have so much respect for you and that in the journey. I really do. Because to your point, it would be so easy. And I would say that when I was introduced to you, I was like, oh, she's like super successful. Like, what do we have in common? And it's intimidating to look at someone, look at you, go to your Instagram and go, oh my gosh, she's got her shit together. She's a doctor. And there's a lot of life that's happened, and you've created this success. You've been intentional about it, but it's been work and it's been a journey. And that I think is so inspiring.
Aw. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Lisa. I also appreciate you giving me the space to share the parts that are not Instagram friendly.
Yeah. That's the real stuff, though.
That is the real stuff. I know, and I'm learning to share my story, and I think it takes time, right? Not
Hmm.
to get off tangent, but I just had a conversation with you may be connected to them, Samantha Boss. She works with high conflict divorces, and her and I were
Mm.
having a conversation about how tough it is to share parts of your story that involves another person that are really painful. Like, I didn't share the closet story because I was married and I don't want him to feel bad, and we're friends now. And did he have his shortcomings? Yes. But so it took even that part, just the fact of getting to here, to this podcast, sitting here right now with you, Lisa, and having the ability, the vulnerability, the depth to like be able to dive in and share the piece of my story that are ugly, like even that took inner work. It's not
Absolutely.
easy to do.
It's not easy to do. For me, it was my family. We're going to switch gears here in a minute, but to echo that,
Mm,
my family thought that I was the crazy one in getting a divorce.
mm,
So anything that I said about my ex-husband was like, no way. There's no way. And it was when I took responsibility to say, you know what? I created this. I made these decisions. I can't blame him anymore. I can't blame my family anymore. I did this. I knew I shouldn't have married him. And that was the hardest thing for me to say. I knew I shouldn't have married him. And I did it anyway. And here we are.
mm,
And my son, he's 17. I have him, and that's the whole reason that this journey happened. I know it is. And here we are. It's those pieces of our stories that make us who we are today. And there are so many women on the planet, I would say all women on the planet right now, in a journey similar to ours in their own way.
yeah,
In their own way.
absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
I just have to say, Lisa, we have way more in common than you thought. I
I
When I
know.
got married, this might be the first time I'm saying this in public. I also did knew that I shouldn't have gotten married. Like on the day of my wedding,
The day of my wedding.
engaged, when I was married, when I was on my honeymoon, I knew, and yet I just kept going.
That's the script.
Yeah.
That's the script.
Mm-hmm.
You interrupted it though.
Yes, and
You
you did too.
created. Yes. So now you have your, there are lots of things we can talk about, but I want to lean into the Elevate Club.
Yes.
And I've seen, so I'm in your Facebook group. I've been fangirling you forever. We were in the same like virtual summit together, and I listened to that. And so I understand your methodology somewhat. And in the Elevate Club, and you do retreats, which I think are amazing, you're calling professionals together and teaching them how to escalate their success.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, what are you most proud of in the Elevate Club, and how can someone find out about how they can work with you through Elevate?
Yeah. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the community that's inside of Elevate. It's we have a bunch of really incredible people, entrepreneurs who are vulnerable, who are growth oriented, who are successful on their way to success by their own definition. Every single
Absolutely.
person that's inside of Elevate is they want more for life, for the life that they want more out of life. So I'm really proud of that. And I think something that I offer that might be relevant to this conversation is a guide on how to do the kind of vision that actually quantum leaps your life. Because not every vision is going to get, I mean, we all know how to set SMART goals and how to do the
Hmm.
things, and I did that for years. But the kind of vision that I learned along the way to set that was going to have me evolve and quantum leap over and over, I have a blueprint and a guide for anybody who's listening. And if you message me and mention Lisa's podcast, I'm happy to send that over to you.
Thank you. I think that's really cool. And I think that that's where, so I don't believe I'm an entrepreneur, which is really great. I had this aha where in this epiphany, having my own business and being on this journey and being an author and having a podcast where I was like, I got to be an entrepreneur and I got to create all this like multi-million dollar businesses, la, la, la. And I just was up against it, up against it, up against it. And you said something that I think is so important, which is success, that what success means to you,
Hmm.
not by society's definition.
Mm-hmm.
And then to define quantum leap, how would you define that for someone? Because to go from, I know I've been in this area of my business and I do want to quantum leap. So explain that. What does that mean? And I don't even know. Like if for me to say it, yeah, I want to quantum leap, but what does that really mean? How do you define that?
Mm-hmm. I think that's where the vision comes into play,
Mm.
right? Because if your vision is authentic, if you're like, that, I don't know why I've always wanted a red Ferrari. I don't know why I've always wanted to send my kids to, I don't know why I want to build an orphanage, whatever that is. And there's a reason why it's different. Starting with the vision, tapping into the identity, embodying that identity, and then taking actions that are aligned with that identity and that vision is the way to quantum leap. I'll just add this little bit since we're talking about I feel like we need a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But on quantum leap itself, it's in quantum physics, when there is a particle that moves from one layer to another, it does not require that particle to work harder or to move faster. There's none of that is required. What's required is a different energetic state for that particle
Mm.
to quantum leap to the next. So when I was in the closet, there was zero chance I was going to quantum leap there. So I had to shift my energetic state to have the ability to be able to quantum leap and sort of move to a completely different life and then do it over and over again and reinvent myself within the identity and embodiment steps of the quantum leap.
That's juicy.
I think so too.
That's really cool. I'm such a nerd too. I love science. I love science. It's so cool. Okay, more on that. But if you want to know from Nona what the quantum leap is, reach out. That's
Mm-hmm.
a good start in her world. And we'll keep this conversation alive. I know I'll be on your podcast this year. We're part of each other's communities. And so to close out this conversation, I have a round in my podcast that I call 5 minutes of fast talk.
Okay,
Okay, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
They're just
Okay.
short. This is my favorite game to play ever, and so I'm so glad we get to play it together, okay? So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna give you like this or that kind of questions and you can answer. Okay, you
I
ready?
feel a lot of pressure right now.
If you, well, 5 minutes can be 3 minutes, whatever, but if you're like, I don't know, next, just say next.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
So this is about money habits.
Okay.
Budgeting app or spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet.
Automatic savings or manual savings?
Automatic savings.
Pay down debt or build an emergency fund first?
Pay down debt.
Okay. Weekly allowance or monthly budget?
Monthly budget, if I had to pick one.
Okay.
I don't like
Side-
budgets.
I don't either. I don't either. Side hustle or overtime?
Ooh, a side hustle that generates a lot, not a
Okay.
Mickey Mouse operation.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, so shopping style. And you
Okay.
did take the money personality quiz, so I will say as a note, you did take the money personality
I
quiz,
did.
and you're an avoider. That was your top money
I
personality?
know, and I was surprised.
I was surprised by that too.
Okay.
I'll have to send you the detailed report.
Okay.
I don't think you're an avoider.
I need to maybe retake the test.
Yeah, I think that maybe probably what's going on is that you'd rather focus on other things. Like you don't want to worry about money.
I don't want to worry about money.
Yeah,
I've
that's what
worked
it is.
really hard not to worry about money.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Shopping style. We were just talking about this before the show went live. Shop online or in store?
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay. If I have to pick one right now in this phase of my life, online.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
Couponing or flash sales?
mm, Flash sales, if I had to pick one.
Okay. Designer brand or thrift store find?
Designer brand.
DIY gifts or store-bought presents?
I wish I could say DIY, but I'm not that person.
I'm not either.
Oh God.
I'm not either. Okay. Let's talk about travel and experiences.
Okay.
Luxury vacation or backpacking adventure?
Definitely luxury.
First class flight or five-star hotel? Well, why can't you have both? I don't
I
like that.
want both. I want
You
both.
want
But
both.
if I had to pick one, which one would I pick?
Yeah.
I might have to pick the hotel.
Yeah, but you don't have to pick.
I don't have to pick.
Yeah. Staycation or international trip?
International trip.
Workcation or pure vacation?
Pure vacation.
Yeah, these questions I should
They're
vet
good
these
though.
questions better. Yeah. Okay. Let's do financial freedom.
Okay.
And then I have our final question of the interview. Early retirement or high paying career?
Early retirement.
Passive income or active income?
Both, but passive income.
Tiny house or luxury condo?
Luxury condo.
Minimalist or indulgence?
Minimalist.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, last question. What's a purchase or financial decision you've made that felt like giving your inner child a big hug?
Ooh. I have to pick one.
No?
Two.
Okay,
Two. Okay. This is so fun. I feel like a child's playing a game.
that's what we're doing.
So fun. I think my house in the mountains was, if I had to pick one, I would pick that one. It's
And
something.
where is that? Because not everybody knows that.
Yeah, so I live between Laguna Beach in Southern California and Rome in Italy. So we have an apartment in Rome and we have a house in Laguna Beach. And this purchase, which is semi-recent, is just every dream come true. Other purchases, I feel like I'm a little giggly every time I buy first class. Every
I
time
love
I
it.
upgrade, I'm a little bit like little girl giggly.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so great. I've had so many people take international flights, and when they get back, they're like, I'm never flying coach again. I'm not doing it. I love to upgrade my husband into business class because he just always feels very, very demure.
I love it.
Thank you for being a part of the Real Money community.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up and being honest and vulnerable today.
Thank you.
Where can the audience find you?
Probably the best place would be just look me up on Instagram. It'll be my first name, my last name. I'm following Lisa. You should follow Lisa if you're not. And send me a message, say what you heard in here, how it related to you, or if you want the 4 steps to the quantum leap or the blueprint to the vision, I'm happy to send it over to you as long as you mention the podcast.
Amazing.
And I want to say one last thing. Lisa, thank you so much for everything that you do, for turning your story into your message and sharing it out with the world and having a space for somebody like me to be able to share vulnerably and safely with your audience. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining the first episode of 2025 with me and Nona. You can catch us right here in another episode, and we'll be back with another amazing guest, another amazing topic, and we'll see you next time on Real Money. Thanks for joining us.